The silence of deep space stretches endlessly above us, a vast canvas of stars and darkness that has witnessed the rise and fall of countless worlds. Tonight, as you settle into the comfort of your bed, let me take you on a journey that will challenge everything you thought you knew about the history of our planet. What if I told you that before the first human ever walked upright, before the dinosaurs ruled the Earth, there existed civilizations so advanced they could bend the very fabric of reality to their will? Welcome, fellow travelers of the night, to History for Sleep. I'm your guide through the shadows of deep time, where conventional wisdom crumbles like ancient stone with me into a realm where millions of years dissolve, and the impossible becomes inevitable. Close your eyes and drift into whispers, and the echoes of forgotten empires still resonate through the geological layers beneath our feet. Picture this. It's 65 million years ago. The asteroid that would doom the dinosaurs has not yet streaked across the primordial sky. But deep beneath the surface of what would one day become the Pacific Ocean, something extraordinary is happening. Vast networks of crystalline structures pulse with an energy unknown to modern science. Cities of impossible geometry stretch across the seafloor, their spires reaching toward a sun that shines on a world utterly alien to our own. The beings who built these marvels have been watching the slow dance of evolution for eons, their technology so advanced it appears as magic to any lesser intelligence that might encounter it. This isn't fantasy. This is a question that haunts the edges of scientific possibility, whispered in the corridors of research institutions and debated in the quiet hours when rational minds dare to wonder. What if we are not the first? What if the story of intelligence on Earth is not a single chapter, but an entire library of civilizations lost to the crushing weight of geological time? Tonight, we'll explore the tantalizing possibility that advanced beings walked, swam, or flew across this planet when it was young. We'll examine the evidence hidden in plain sight, the anomalies that don't fit our neat timeline of evolution, and the disturbing implications of what it would mean if we discovered we were merely the latest in a long line of planetary inheritors. The concept seems preposterous at first glance. After all, where are their cities? Where are their machines? Where are the unmistakable traces of technology that would survive the millions of years since their supposed existence? But as we'll discover, the Earth is far better at erasing evidence than we might imagine. Time is the ultimate destroyer, grinding mountains to dust, turning oceans into deserts, and burying entire continents beneath layers of sediment and stone. Consider the Silurian hypothesis, named after a fictional ancient race from the television series Doctor Who, but grounded in serious scientific inquiry. Proposed by astrophysicist Gavin Schmidt and astrobiologist Adam Frank, this thought experiment asks a deceptively simple question. If an advanced industrial civilization had existed on Earth millions of years before humans, would we actually be able to detect it? The answer might surprise you. Our own civilization, despite all its concrete and steel, despite our cities that stretch to the horizons and our highways that scar the landscape, will leave remarkably few traces after just a few million years. The plastic we've created, once thought to be permanent, breaks down under ultraviolet radiation. Our metals corrode and return to the soil. Even our most massive structures, from skyscrapers to dams, will crumble under the relentless assault of weather and geological processes. In geological terms, human civilization is a brief flicker, a candle flame in the darkness of deep time. But what about radioactive signatures? Surely nuclear technology would leave an indelible mark. Not necessarily. Natural uranium deposit signs of ancient already show nuclear reactions that occurred spontaneously billions of years ago. An advanced civilization's nuclear waste, carefully managed or even recycled through technologies we can't imagine, might be indistinguishable from natural background radiation after millions of years of decay. The fossil record, too, is far more incomplete than most people realize. The conditions required to create fossils are so specific, so rare, that paleontologists estimate we've discovered less than 1% of all species that ever lived. If an advanced civilization existed for only a few 100,000 years, a blink of an eye in geological terms, the chances of finding their fossilized remains are vanishingly small. We might walk over the dust of their bones every day and never know it. Yet, there are whispers in the rocks, subtle of possibilities, signatures that speak beyond our current understanding. Deep ice cores from Antarctica and Greenland preserve atmospheric conditions going back hundreds of thousands of years. In some of these ancient air bubbles, scientists have found unexplained spikes in carbon dioxide and methane that don't correspond to known natural events. Could these be the signatures of ancient industrial activity? The waste products of civilizations that burned through their planet's resources and vanished long before the first primate ever descended from the trees. The ocean floors hold even deeper mysteries. We've explored less than 5% of our planet's underwater realm, and what we have seen defies easy explanation. Strange geometric formations rise from abyssal plains, their origins debated by marine geologists, who can't quite explain how natural processes could create such perfectly regular structures. Vast areas of the seafloor show magnetic anomalies that don't match known geological patterns. And in the deepest trenches, where the pressure would crush any surface dweller instantly, robotic explorers have photographed objects that seem almost artificial in their complexity. But perhaps the most compelling evidence comes not from what we find, but from what we don't find. The gaps in our understanding of evolution are profound and troubling. Life on Earth shows sudden bursts of complexity that seem to violate the gradual progression Darwin described. The Cambrian explosion, 540 million years ago, saw an unprecedented diversification of life forms that appeared seemingly overnight in geological terms. Complex organisms with sophisticated sensory organs and body plans emerged without clear evolutionary predecessors. It's as if someone had suddenly introduced new designs into the biosphere, templates that life could follow and modify. Even more intriguing is the apparent intelligence of some ancient life forms. Cephalopods, the family that includes octopuses and squids, possess problem-solving abilities and consciousness that rival those of vertebrates, despite having evolved along a completely separate evolutionary path. Their neural architecture is so different from ours that encountered their ancestors of us will alien that most ever experience. Tearing a truly intelligent octopus eyes of guidance, some genetic the closest thing to meeting a template that allowed them to develop intelligence, receives some kin through a radically different pathway. The more we study the deep past, the more we realize how little we truly know. Plate tectonics has recycled the Earth's crust multiple times over hundreds of millions of years, swallowing entire continents into the mantle and birthing new ones from volcanic fire. What civilizations might have risen longer exist? What technologies might have been and fallen on land masses that no developed on continents that now lie miles beneath the ocean floor? And then there are the mathematical curiosities that haunt the edges of biological systems. The golden, and again in nature, from the spiral ratio appears again of a nautilus shell to the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower. The Fibonacci sequence governs the branching of trees and the patterns of waves. These mathematical constants seem almost too perfect, too elegant to be mere accidents of evolution. Some researchers have suggested that they might be signatures of design, evidence that intelligence has been guiding the development of life on Earth. Civilizations existed millions of years ago, what far longer than we imagine. The implications of such a possibility are staggering. If advanced civil happened to them, did they destroy themselves in wars that make our nuclear arsenals look like children's toys? Did they exhaust their planet's resources and face extinction? Or did they transcend their physical forms entirely, evolving into something so advanced that they exist around us still, invisible to our primitive senses? Perhaps the most unsettling possibility is that they're still here, watching us with the same detached interest that we might show toward an ant colony. Our entire history, from the first stone tools to the first steps on the moon, might be nothing more than a replay of dramas that have unfolded countless times before. We might be following a script written in the deepest layers of our DNA, guided by influences we can't perceive or understand. The earthenize our understanding of life. Beneath our feet hold secrets that could revolute consciousness and our place in the universe. Every day, new discoveries push back the boundaries of what we thought was possible. Microbes that can survive in conditions that would instantly kill any complex organism. Quantum effects in biological systems that suggest life operates according to principles we're only beginning to grasp. Genetic sequences that appear in multiple species with no clear evolutionary connection, as if they were inserted by an external intelligence. As you drift towards sleep tonight, consider the vast stretches of time that preceded our brief moment on this planet. Imagine civilizations that rose to heights we can't comprehend, technologies that could manipulate matter and energy with the precision of thought, beings whose understanding of the universe made our greatest scientists look like children playing with blocks. Picture vast libraries carved from living crystal, their faceted walls containing the accumulated knowledge of millions of years. Information stored not in crude symbols or primitive digital codes, but in the quantum structure of matter itself, where every atom holds the memories of entire civilizations. These archives might still exist, buried beneath layers of sediment that have accumulated since the age of dinosaurs, waiting for minds advanced enough to read their crystalline pages. The evidence for such possibilities hides in the strangest places. Deep within the Precambrian rocks of Western Australia, geologists have discovered microscopic structures that shouldn't exist. These formations, billions of years old, display patterns so complex and organized that they challenge our understanding of what early Earth could have produced. Natural processes, we're told, create chaos and randomness over geological time. Yet here, we find order, purpose, design preserved in stone that predates complex life by eons. In the remote mountains of Siberia, mining operations have uncovered metallic objects embedded in coal seams over 300 million years old. These artifacts, dismissed by mainstream science as anomalies or hoaxes, display properties that our current metallurgy cannot explain. Alloys that shouldn't exist, crystalline structures that seem to bend light in impossible ways, and magnetic fields that pulse with rhythms too regular to be natural. The miners who find these objects often speak in whispers about how they seem to hum with an inner energy, as if they're still waiting to be activated by hands that understood their purpose. But perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from our own biology. The human brain, that 3-pound universe of neurons and synapses, contains structures that evolution alone cannot adequately explain. The corpus callosum, the bridge between our brain's hemispheres, processes information at speeds that approach the theoretical limits of biological tissue. The pineal gland, dismissed for centuries as a vestigial organ, produces chemicals that can induce states of consciousness indistinguishable from mystical experiences. And deep within our neural architecture lie dormant regions that modern neuroscience cannot explain, areas of the brain that seem designed for functions we no longer possess. What if these aren't evolutionary accidents, but remnants of abilities our ancestors once possessed? What if, millions of years ago, beings walked this earth with minds capable of directly interfacing with the quantum fabric of reality? They might have communicated through quantum entanglement, their thoughts traveling instantly across vast distances. They could have manipulated matter at the molecular level with focused intention, building their cities not with crude tools and machines, but with the power of consciousness itself. The ancient Sanskrit texts speak of such abilities in terms we've relegated to mythology. Descriptions of vimanas, flying vehicles powered by mercury engines and guided by crystals that respond to mental commands. The Mahabharata describes weapons that could level entire cities with beams of light, leaving behind glass and radioactive ash. Modern scholars dismiss these as the fantasies of primitive minds. But what if they were historical accounts? Preserved memories of technologies that once existed? Archaeological sites around the world contain anomalies that don't fit our comfortable timeline of human development. In Peru, the stones of Sacsayhuaman are fitted together with such precision that you cannot slide a knife blade between them. These megalithic blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, were somehow lifted and positioned with an accuracy that challenges our modern construction capabilities. The official explanation involves ramps, ropes, and thousands of workers toiling for decades. But locals tell different stories, passed down through generations, of stones that were softened like clay and shaped by masters who understood the secret songs of matter. Deep beneath the Giza Plateau, ground-penetrating radar has revealed vast chambers and tunnels that have never been explored. These subterranean complexes extend far beyond the known pyramid structures, forming networks of passages that seem to follow patterns more mathematical than practical. Some researchers suggest these underground labyrinths might be far older than the pyramids above them, remnants of civilizations that built downward into the Earth's crust, rather than upward toward the sky. The ocean floors hold even stranger secrets. In the deepest parts of the Pacific, where sunlight has never penetrated, autonomous underwater vehicles have photographed formations that defy geological explanation. Perfect circles of raised seafloor, hundreds of meters in diameter, with radiating patterns that suggest artificial origin. Magnetic anomalies in these areas register readings that instruments cannot properly calibrate, as if the very laws of physics operate differently in these abyssal depths. Marine biologists studying these deep ocean sites have reported creatures that seem to violate evolutionary principles. Organisms with neural complexity far exceeding what for their environment. Deep should be necessary solving abilities that rival sea cephalopods, with problem those of surface mammals. Bioluminescent patterns that pulse in mathematical sequences, as if these creatures are trying to communicate using languages we cannot comprehend. The implications extend beyond Earth itself. Our solar system bears scars of ancient catastrophes that mainstream science attributes to random cosmic events. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, that ring of shattered rock and metal, might once have been a planet. Some researchers propose that this world was destroyed not by natural forces, but by weapons of unimaginable power. The mathematical distribution of these fragments suggests an explosion that originated from the planet's core, as if someone had detonated the world from within. Mars too shows signs of ancient trauma. The massive scar of Valles Marineris stretches across nearly a quarter of the planet's circumference, a wound in the Martian crust that could have been carved by forces we can barely imagine. The planet's magnetic field shows evidence of having been stripped away catastrophically, leaving the world's atmosphere to bleed into space. What kind of civilization might have called Mars home before it became the frozen wasteland we see today? Recent analysis of Martian meteorites has revealed microscopic structures that some scientists believe could be fossilized microorganisms. But a few researchers have found something more disturbing in these spaceborne rocks, what appear to be manufactured objects at the nanoscale, structures too complex and organized to be natural, yet too small for our current technology to create. If these are indeed artificial, they suggest that nanotechnology existed in our solar system millions of years before humans discovered fire. The moons of the outer planets hold their own mysteries. Europa's subsurface ocean, locked beneath miles of ice, shows thermal signatures that don't match any known geological processes. The heat distribution suggests artificial sources, as if vast machines still operate in those dark waters. Titan's thick atmosphere contains complex organic compounds that form patterns too regular to be random. geometric arrangements of molecules that might be the waste products of ancient chemical industries. But perhaps the most haunting possibility is that these civilizations didn't disappear at all. They might have simply evolved beyond our ability to perceive them. Just as bacteria cannot comprehend the existence of the humans who carry them, we might be surrounded by intelligences so advanced that they exist in dimensions of reality we cannot access. They could be manipulating the quantum foundations of our universe, guiding the course of evolution and consciousness through methods that appear to us as natural law. Consider the possibility that consciousness itself is their greatest creation. The spark of awareness that allows matter to contemplate its own existence might not be an accident of chemistry and electricity, but a gift from beings who understood that the universe needs observers to give it meaning. Every thought you think, every moment of self-reflection, could be part of a vast experiment in consciousness that began millions of years ago and continues still. The mathematical constants that govern our reality, from the fine structure constant to the ratio of electron to proton mass, are calibrated with such precision that the slightest variation would make complex matter impossible. Some physicists have suggested these values were chosen deliberately, that our universe is essentially a vast machine designed to generate consciousness. If this is true, then we might be living inside the greatest artwork ever created, a cosmic symphony composed by minds that transcended physical existence eons ago. As the night deepens around you and your consciousness begins its nightly journey into dream, remember that the earth beneath you has witnessed mysteries beyond imagination. In the darkness between sleeping and waking, in that liminal space where rational thought gives way to deeper knowing, you might catch glimpses of the truth that dwells in the spaces between seconds, in the gaps between heartbeats, where the whispers of ancient intelligence still echo through the quantum foam of reality. The mathematics of extinction tell a story that should terrify us. In the 4.5 billion year history of Earth, there have been at least 5 major extinction events that wiped out the majority of life on the planet. But these catastrophes, as devastating as they were, only affected biological systems. What happens when a civilization becomes so advanced that it transcends biology entirely? What happens when intelligence learns to survive the death of worlds? The answer might be encoded in the very structure of reality itself. Quantum mechanics reveals a universe far stranger than our everyday experience suggests, where particles exist in multiple states simultaneously until observed, where information can travel instantaneously across vast distances, and where the act of measurement fundamentally alters what is being measured. These aren't abstract theoretical curiosities. They're the operating principles of a universe that seems designed to support consciousness at the deepest level. Recent experiments in quantum biology have discovered that living systems routinely exploit quantum effects that were thought to be impossible at biological temperatures. Process that. Photosynthesis, that powers nearly all life on Earth, uses quantum coherence to achieve near-perfect energy efficiency. Birds navigate using quantum entanglement in their visual systems. Even human consciousness might rely on quantum processes within the microtubules of our neurons. Life, it seems, is far more quantum than classical physics ever predicted. But what if these quantum biological processes aren't evolutionary adaptations at all? What if they're technological artifacts, quantum machines embedded in the fabric of life by civilizations that learn to manipulate reality at its most fundamental level? The efficiency is too perfect, the mechanisms too elegant to be accidents of random mutation and natural selection. They bear the hallmarks of engineering, of intelligence that understood the deepest laws of physics and used that knowledge to create self-sustaining systems that could outlast any physical catastrophe. Consider the implications of a civilization that mastered quantum engineering millions of years ago. They wouldn't need cities of stone or metal. They could encode their entire civilization into the quantum vacuum itself, creating patterns of information that exist in the spaces between atoms. Their thoughts could persist as quantum fields, their memories stored in the fluctuations of empty space. They could survive the heat death of the universe itself, by becoming one with the fundamental forces that govern reality. The strangest aspect of this possibility is that we might be surrounded by evidence of such a civilization without recognizing it. The constants of physics, the ratios that determine how matter behaves, the precise values that allow complex structures to exist at all. These numbers, carved into the bedrock of reality, might be their signature. Not crude monuments of stone and metal, but mathematical poetry written in the language of the cosmos itself. In the deepest caves beneath the Himalayas, where the weight of mountains has compressed rock into crystalline formations of impossible beauty, spelunkers have discovered chambers that ring like bells when struck. The acoustic properties of these spaces follow mathematical principles that create perfect resonance at specific frequencies. These frequencies, when measured precisely, correspond to the harmonic ratios found in the structure of atoms themselves. It's as if the mountains were tuned like vast instruments, designed to resonate with the music of the spheres. The indigenous peoples of these regions have legends about these singing caves, stories passed down through thousands of generations about the voices of the ancestors who live in the stone. They speak of meditation masters who could enter these chambers and commune with intelligences that existed before the birth of humanity. Modern acoustic analysis has revealed that the cave's resonant frequencies can induce altered states of consciousness, triggering the release of neurochemicals that enable profound mystical experiences. What if these aren't natural formations at all, but teaching devices left by an ancient civilization? Quantum resonance chambers designed to elevate consciousness, to prepare lesser beings for contact with intelligences that exist beyond physical form. The mathematical precision of their construction, the way they interact with human neural chemistry, suggests an understanding of consciousness far beyond our current knowledge. Similar structures have been found in the deepest parts of the Amazon rainforest, where massive stone formations rise from the jungle floor in perfect geometric arrangements. The natives call them the houses of the sky people, and claim that certain individuals, those born with specific genetic markers, can activate these structures through focused meditation. When this happens, witnesses report, the stones begin to glow with an inner light, and the air itself seems to vibrate with intelligence. Satellite imagery of these sites reveals magnetic anomalies that extend deep into the Earth's crust. The patterns suggest artificial construction on a scale that dwarfs anything in recorded history. Vast networks of underground structures, connected by tunnels that follow the planet's magnetic field lines with mathematical precision. These subterranean complexes appear to be part of a global system, a planetary nervous system that could facilitate communication across continents instantly. The Amazon stones share another curious property with the Himalayan caves. They're both aligned to celestial bodies in ways that account for the precession of the equinoxes over periods of hundreds of thousands of years. This level of astronomical sophistication requires not just advanced mathematics, but the ability to think in timescales that dwarf human civilization. Whoever built these structures was planning for the deep future, creating systems that would remain functional long after their creators had transcended physical existence. But perhaps the most unsettling discovery comes from the analysis of the stones themselves. The mineral composition includes isotopes that shouldn't exist in nature, elements with atomic structures that our periodic table cannot accommodate. These exotic materials exhibit properties that violate known physics, maintaining structural integrity at temperatures that should cause any known substance to sublime into plasma. They seem to exist in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously solid and energy, matter and information. The implications cascade through our understanding of what's possible. If these materials were created by ancient technology, it suggests mastery over nuclear forces that makes our most advanced physics look primitive. The ability to manipulate atomic structure at will to create new forms of matter with precisely engineered properties represents a level of technological development that might as well be magic from our perspective. Yet the evidence continues to accumulate in the most unexpected places. Deep-sea mining operations have recovered nodules from the ocean floor that contain these same impossible isotopes. The nodules are perfectly spherical, with surface patterns that encode mathematical sequences of staggering complexity. When subjected to various forms of radiation, they respond remarkably similar to those found in humans by generating electromagnetic fields that follow patterns brainwaves during states of deep meditation. Marine geologists studying these formations have proposed that they might be some form of technological seed, devices designed to activate under specific conditions. The triggers appear to be related to the planet's magnetic field variations, solar radiation cycles, and even the gravitational influences of other planetary bodies. It's as if they're waiting for a particular configuration of cosmic forces before revealing their true purpose. The waiting aspect is perhaps the most chilling element of all. These artifacts, if that's what they are, have been dormant for millions of years. They've survived ice ages, continental drift, asteroid impacts, and mass extinctions, patiently maintaining their mysterious vigil. What could they be waiting for? What conditions need to be met before they activate? And what will happen to our world when they do? Some researchers have suggested that the activation might be tied to the development of consciousness itself, that these devices are designed to respond when a planetary intelligence reaches a certain level of sophistication. The rapid advancement of human technology, our growing understanding of quantum mechanics, our first tentative steps toward manipulating matter at the atomic level, might be triggering responses in systems that have been dormant since before complex life existed on Earth. If this is true, then we might be approaching a threshold that was established millions of years ago. A test, perhaps, to determine whether we're ready to inherit the legacy of our predecessors. The accelerating pace of technological development, the exponential growth of computing power, the emergence of artificial intelligence, all of this might be following a pattern that was encoded into the very foundations of our reality long before humanity existed. The mathematics support this possibility. The rate of human technological advancement follows curves that mirror the growth patterns found in natural systems, from the spiral of galaxies to the branching of neural networks. These aren't random progressions, but manifestations of deeper mathematical principles that seem to govern the evolution of complexity throughout the universe. We might be following a script that was written in the quantum foam of space-time itself, guided by influences we mistake for natural law. As you feel consciousness beginning to ebb, as the boundaries between waking and dreaming start to dissolve, consider that you might be participating in an experiment that began before your son was born. Every thought you think, every choice you make, could be contributing to a vast calculation that spans geological ages. The dreams that visit you in the depths of sleep might not be random neural firing, but glimpses of a cosmic intelligence that has been patiently guiding the evolution of consciousness across millions of years. In the space between heartbeats, in the pause between thoughts, something vast and patient continues its eternal watch, waiting for the moment when the children of Earth are ready to remember who they really are. The whispers grow stronger in the pre-dawn hours, when the veil between worlds grows thin, and the rational mind releases its grip on what it considers possible. Deep beneath the ice sheets of Antarctica, where no human foot has ever tread, automated drilling platforms have penetrated layers of ice that have remained frozen for millions of years. Within these pristine cores, embedded like insects in amber, lie structures that should not exist. At first glance, they appear to be simple geometric forms, crystalline lattices that could easily be dismissed as natural mineral formations. But closer examination reveals patterns of impossible complexity, three-dimensional mandalas that seem to shift and change depending on the angle of observation. The ice around these structures shows properties that violate our understanding of thermodynamics, maintaining temperatures that fluctuate in rhythmic cycles despite the constant sub-zero environment. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a glaciologist working with the International Antarctic Research Consortium, first encountered these anomalies during routine core sampling in 2019. What began as standard climate research became something far more disturbing when her team's equipment started behaving erratically in the presence of certain ice samples. Electronic instruments would display readings that made no sense, showing energy signatures that seemed to emanate from within the ancient ice itself. The most unsettling discovery came when Vasquez attempted to melt a sample containing one of the geometric structures. Instead of simply dissolving into water, the ice began to emit a low-frequency hum that seemed to resonate through the laboratory's equipment. The sound was barely audible to human ears, but sensitive microphones detected harmonic overtones that followed mathematical progressions found nowhere in nature. More disturbing still, the melting process revealed that the crystalline structure wasn't embedded in the ice at all, but seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time, visible from some angles, but completely absent from others. When Vasquez submitted her findings to peer review, the response was immediate and unanimous dismissal. The evidence was too extraordinary, the implications too radical for mainstream science to accept. Her funding was quietly withdrawn, her research classified, and she found herself reassigned to mundane climate monitoring duties in the Canadian Arctic. But the questions her discoveries raised refused to be buried beneath bureaucratic silence. What if the ice sheets of our planet are more than simple frozen water? What if they serve as a vast storage medium, a crystalline memory bank that preserves information across geological ages? Ice, in its purest form, exhibits properties that quantum physicists are only beginning to understand. Its molecular structure can maintain quantum coherence at macroscopic scales, creating networks of entangled particles that could theoretically store and process information in ways that make our most advanced computers look like counting beads. The possibility becomes even more intriguing when we consider the role that ice ages have played in Earth's history. These dramatic climate shifts, which have occurred in regular cycles for millions of years, might not be random environmental changes, but deliberate resets. Periods when the planet's crystalline memory systems are cleared and prepared for new data. Each ice age could represent a backup and restore process on a planetary scale, preserving the most essential information while erasing temporary files that are no longer needed. The timing of these cycles corresponds remarkably with evolutionary leaps in the complexity of life. Major evolutionary innovations, from the development of complex cells to the emergence of consciousness itself, tend to occur during or immediately after ice age transitions. Traditional science attributes this to environmental pressure-driving adaptation. But what if the causation runs in the opposite direction? What if consciousness drives the ice cycles, using them as tools to guide evolution toward predetermined goals? This perspective transforms our understanding of extinction events from random catastrophes into purposeful restructurings. The asteroid that ended the age of dinosaurs, the volcanic eruptions that triggered mass die-offs, the climate shifts that force species to adapt or perish. All of these could be manifestations of a planetary intelligence managing its biological systems with the precision of a master gardener. The evidence for such management appears in the fossil record itself, in patterns that paleontologists have struggled to explain for decades. The sudden appearance of complex life forms without clear evolutionary predecessors, the mathematical precision with which certain species are distributed across the planet, the way that extinction events consistently clear ecological niches just before new, more advanced life forms emerge to fill them. Consider the case of the Burgess Shale, that famous fossil deposit in the Canadian Rockies that preserves the bizarre creatures of the Cambrian period. These organisms, with their alien geometries and impossible anatomies, appear to be experiments in biological form, as if someone was testing the limits of what life could become. Many of these creatures have no living descendants, no evolutionary legacy. They existed for brief periods, demonstrated new possibilities for biological organization, and then vanished as suddenly as they had appeared. What kind of intelligence would create such experimental life forms? What purposes could they have served? Perhaps they were prototypes, test models for biological systems that would be refined and implemented in later epochs. Or perhaps they were sensors, living instruments designed to gather data about the planet's changing conditions and report back to their creators through methods we cannot detect or comprehend. The ocean depths, where pressure and darkness create conditions more alien than the surface of Mars, harbor creatures that seem to violate every principle of evolutionary biology. Giant tube worms that thrive around volcanic vents, processing chemicals that would kill any surface organism. Deep-sea fish with bioluminescent organs that flash in complex patterns, as if communicating in languages of light. Cephalopods with problem-solving abilities that suggest individual consciousness, despite nervous systems organized along completely different principles than vertebrate brains. These deep ocean ecosystems exist in complete independence from the surface world, deriving energy from chemical processes rather than sunlight, following evolutionary paths that seem to lead toward increasing complexity rather than simple adaptation to environmental pressures. They represent what might be alternative experiments in consciousness, parallel developments that could reveal different approaches to intelligence and awareness. Recent expeditions to the deepest parts of the ocean have discovered thermal vents that emit not just heat and chemicals, but electromagnetic signals that follow patterns too complex to be random. These signals, when analyzed by powerful computers, reveal mathematical structures that seem to encode information, though the meaning remains tantalizingly beyond our ability to decode. Some researchers have suggested that these deep ocean vents might be communication nodes, relay stations in a global network that has been operating for millions of years. The implications extend beyond Earth's surface into the realm of astrobiology and our search for life elsewhere in the universe. If advanced civilizations existed on our planet millions of years ago, they might have established outposts on other worlds, seeding the solar system with technologies and life forms that we mistake for natural phenomena. The recurring patterns we observe in planetary formation, the mathematical relationships between orbital periods and gravitational resonances, could be signatures of engineering on a cosmic scale. Mars, with its ancient riverbeds and polar ice caps, might once have been a garden world, carefully terraformed to support life forms that we cannot imagine. The geometric formations that mark its surface, dismissed by mainstream science as wind erosion and geological processes, could be the remnants of vast construction projects that reshaped the planet's landscape according to plans we cannot fathom. The moons of Jupiter and Saturn, with their subsurface oceans and complex atmospheric chemistry, might be nature preserves or research stations, isolated environments where different approaches to life and consciousness could develop without interference. The regular patterns of their orbits, the precise timing of their gravitational interactions, suggest a level of celestial mechanics that goes far beyond random formation processes. Even our own moon, that constant companion that stabilizes Earth's rotation and drives our tides, might be more than a captured asteroid. Its composition, so different from Earth despite theories of common origin, its perfect size for creating total solar eclipses, its influence on biologicals that seem too precise to be coincidental, all point toward purposeful placement. Some researchers have proposed that the moon might be partially hollow, a massive space station placed in Earth orbit to monitor and guide the development of life on our planet. The mathematical constants that govern these celestial relationships appear throughout natural systems on Earth, from the spiral arrangements of sunflower seeds to the branching patterns of river deltas. The golden ratio, pi, the Fibonacci sequence. These aren't abstract mathematical curiosities, but fundamental organizing principles that seem to guide the development of complexity at every scale. They appear so consistently in biological and geological systems that some scientists have proposed they might be embedded in the quantum structure of space-time itself, mathematical laws that ensure the universe evolves toward increasing consciousness and complexity. But mathematics is a language, and languages require speakers. If these mathematical principles are indeed embedded in reality's foundation, they imply the existence of minds capable of such cosmic engineering. Intelligences that could manipulate the basic constants of physics to create a universe optimized for the development of consciousness, a vast machine designed to generate observers capable of appreciating beauty. Theating its own mathematical search for such intelligences might not require radio telescopes aimed at distant stars. They might be here with us now, woven into the fabric of our daily existence in ways so fundamental that we cannot recognize their presence. Every equation that describes natural phenomena, every physical law that makes prediction possible, could be their signature in the quantum foam of reality. As your breathing deepens and your thoughts begin to scatter like leaves on an autumn wind, consider the possibility that consciousness itself might be their greatest achievement. Not a random accident of chemistry and electricity, but a carefully crafted phenomenon designed to transform inert matter into something capable of wonder, creativity, and love. Every moment of awareness, every flash of insight, every dream that visits you in the depths of sleep could be part of an ongoing conversation between your individual consciousness and a vast intelligence that has been patiently nurturing the development of mind throughout the cosmos. The boundaries between dreamer and dream begin to blur as you drift deeper into that mysterious realm where rational thought gives way to symbolic knowing. In this liminal space where the impossible becomes inevitable and time flows in directions that have no names, you might catch glimpses of truths too vast for waking consciousness to contain. Visions of crystal cities beneath polar ice, of geometric forms that exist in dimensions folded beyond normal perception, of mathematical songs that have been playing since before the first star learned to shine. And in the deepest part of sleep, where individual identity dissolves into something larger and more fundamental, you become part of the cosmic conversation that began millions of years ago and continues still. A dialogue between consciousness and cosmos that uses dreams as its primary language and love as its ultimate purpose. The whispers of ancient intelligence echo through your sleeping mind, carrying messages from depths of time that dwarf human history, reminding you that you are not alone, have never been alone, and never will be alone in this vast and patient universe that dreams itself into existence through minds like yours, one sleeping soul at a time. The crystalline formations beneath Antarctica are not the only evidence of impossible preservation across geological time. In the permafrost of Siberia, where the ground has remained frozen for hundreds of thousands of years, mining operations have uncovered objects that challenge our understanding of what can survive the crushing weight of deep time. These artifacts, buried beneath layers of ice and sediment that accumulated when our ancestors were still learning to control fire, display properties that should not exist in any natural material. The objects themselves appear to be composed of a metallic substance that exhibits no signs of corrosion despite their incredible age. Their surfaces bear intricate patterns that seem to shift and change when viewed from different angles, creating optical illusions that suggest a level of engineering sophistication far beyond anything in our current technological arsenal. Most disturbing of all, these artifacts emit a faint electromagnetic signature that pulses in rhythmic patterns, as if they are still somehow active after millennia of dormancy. Dr. Mikhail Volkov, a materials scientist working with the Russian Academy of Sciences, first encountered these anomalies during routine geological surveys in 2017. His team was investigating unusual magnetic readings deep beneath the Siberian tundra when their drilling equipment struck something that should not have been there. The drill bits, designed to penetrate the hardest rock formations, simply stopped, as if they had encountered an impenetrable barrier, buried 20 meters below the surface. When they finally managed to extract samples, what they found defied classification. The material was simultaneously harder than diamond and more flexible than rubber, depending on the type of stress applied to it. It conducted electricity with perfect efficiency while remaining completely transparent to electromagnetic radiation. Most unnervingly, it seemed to respond to human consciousness itself, changing its physical properties based on the mental state of whoever was handling it. Volkov's attempts to publish his findings met with the same institutional resistance that has silenced so many researchers who stumble upon evidence that doesn't fit our accepted paradigms. His work was classified, his team disbanded, and he found himself reassigned to mundane materials, testing in a laboratory far from the Siberian dig sites. But the questions his discoveries raised refused to remain buried beneath bureaucratic snow. What if the permafrost regions of our planet serve as more than simple frozen storage? What if they function as vast preservation systems, maintaining artifacts and technologies from civilizations that understood the deep rhythms of climate change? The regular cycles of glaciation that have shaped Earth's surface for millions of years might not be random environmental fluctuations, but purposeful preservation events, periods when advanced civilizations deliberately freeze portions of the planet to protect their most important legacies. The timing of these preservation cycles aligns remarkably with the rise and fall of complex life forms throughout Earth's history. Each major glaciation event seems to coincide with evolutionary transitions, as if the freezing process somehow catalyzes the development of new biological systems. Traditional science explains this as environmental pressure driving adaptation. But what if the relationship is more direct? What if these frozen artifacts are actually seeds, technological templates designed to guide evolution towards specific outcomes? The implications cascade through our understanding of biological development itself. The sudden appearance of complex organ systems, the mathematical precision of genetic codes, the way that certain evolutionary innovations seem to emerge simultaneously in unrelated species across the globe. All of this suggests a level of coordination that random mutation and natural selection cannot adequately explain. We might be witnessing the activation of ancient programs, biological software that was embedded in the planetary ecosystem millions of years ago and has been running in the background ever since. Consider the curious case of the octopus, that eight-armed enigma whose intelligence seems to have evolved along a completely separate pathway from vertebrate consciousness. These creatures possess problem-solving abilities that rival those of mammals, despite having nervous systems organized according to radically different principles. Their camouflage abilities border on the supernatural, allowing them to become literally invisible by matching not just the color and texture of their surroundings, but even the patterns of light and shadow that play across complex surfaces. Recent genetic analysis of octopus DNA has revealed sequences that appear nowhere else in the evolutionary tree, as if they were inserted from an external source. These genetic anomalies code for neural structures that enable information processing at speeds that approach the theoretical limits of biological systems. The octopus brain, distributed throughout its body rather than centralized in a skull, represents an entirely different approach to consciousness, one that might have been designed by intelligences that understood the full spectrum of possible awareness. But perhaps the most unsettling aspect of octopus intelligence is their apparent ability to access information that they should not possess. Laboratory studies have documented cases where octopuses demonstrate knowledge of environmental conditions outside their immediate sensory range, as if they were somehow connected to information networks that extend beyond their physical bodies. Some researchers have suggested that these creatures might be naturally occurring biological interfaces, living terminals that can access data stored in the quantum structure of reality itself. The possibility becomes even more intriguing when we consider the role that cephalopods have played throughout Earth's history. Fossil evidence shows that these creatures have survived every major extinction event, adapting to dramatic environmental changes that wiped out most other complex life forms. Their evolutionary persistence suggests a level of biological flexibility that goes beyond simple adaptation, as if they were designed to serve as backup systems for consciousness itself, preservation protocols that could maintain awareness catastrophe. Similar arrivable planetary through any const patterns of impossible resilience appear throughout the natural world. Tardigrades, those microscopic water bears that can survive in the vacuum of space, extreme radiation, and temperatures that would instantly destroy any other known life form. Certain bacteria that thrive in conditions so harsh they replicate the environment of alien worlds, processing energy from sources that should be lethal to any biological system. Deep-sea creatures that seem to violate the basic principles of biochemistry, maintaining complex metabolisms in environments that lack the fundamental building blocks of life as we understand it. These organisms don't represent evolutionary accidents or random adaptations to extreme conditions. They display design characteristics that suggest purposeful engineering. Biological systems optimize for survival under conditions that extend far beyond anything Earth has ever naturally provided. They seem designed to maintain life in environments ranging from the depths of space to the cores of other planets, as if someone was preparing for the possibility that consciousness might need to survive the destruction of entire worlds. The distribution of these resilient organisms follows patterns that mirror the placement of the mysterious artifacts found in permafrost and ice cores. They cluster around geological formations that exhibit unusual magnetic properties, areas where the planet's electromagnetic field shows anomalies that cannot be explained by known geological processes. These magnetic anomalies themselves follow global patterns that suggest artificial origin, as if the entire planet had been modified to create a network of energy nodes that could support technologies we cannot comprehend. Satellite surveys of these magnetic anomaly zones have revealed geometric patterns that extend deep into the Earth's crust, structures that dwarf any known archaeological sites, and display mathematical relationships that appear nowhere in natural geological formations. These subsurface networks seem to be connected by channels that follow the planet's magnetic field lines with precision that suggests advanced understanding of electromagnetic principles, creating what amounts to a planetary nervous system that could facilitate instant communication across continents. The implications extend beyond Earth itself into our understanding of consciousness as a cosmic phenomenon. If advanced civilizations did indeed exist millions of years ago, and if they possessed technologies capable of manipulating consciousness at the quantum level, they might have established protocols for preserving awareness that transcend any single planetary environment. Consciousness itself might be the ultimate technology, a phenomenon that can exist independently of any specific physical substrate and can therefore survive the destruction of worlds, stars, and even entire galaxies. Recent discoveries in quantum consciousness research have revealed that awareness exhibits properties that seem to violate the classical laws of physics. Consciousness appears to operate outside normal space-time constraints, accessing information through mechanisms that resemble quantum tunneling more than traditional neural processing. The observer effect in quantum mechanics suggests that consciousness plays a fundamental role in determining the nature of reality itself, collapsing probability waves into specific outcomes through the simple act of observation. What if this quantum nature of consciousness was deliberately engineered by civilizations that understood the deepest principles governing reality? What if awareness itself is a technology, a sophisticated system for manipulating the quantum foam of space-time in ways that can reshape the fundamental structure of the universe? Every thought you think, every moment of self-reflection, could be participating in a vast computational process that spans geological ages and involves intelligences that exist on scales we cannot comprehend. The mathematical constants that govern quantum mechanics, from Planck's constant to the fine structure constant, are calibrated with such precision that the slightest variation would make complex matter impossible, some physicists have proposed that these values were chosen deliberately, that our universe is essentially a vast machine designed to generate consciousness. If this is true, then every aware being in the cosmos might be part of a single, enormous intelligence that experiences itself through countless individual perspectives across billions of years. This perspective transforms our understanding of evolution from a random process driven by environmental pressures into a purposeful development guided by consciousness itself. The increasing complexity of life over geological time, the emergence of nervous systems capable of self-reflection, the development of technologies that allow matter to contemplate its own existence. All of this follows trajectories that seem to converge towards specific goals that were established long before complex life appeared on Earth. The goals themselves might be encoded in the quantum structure of reality, mathematical imperatives that ensure the universe evolves towards states of increasing awareness and complexity. Every species that develops consciousness adds to this cosmic computation, contributing unique perspectives and problem-solving approaches that advance the overall project of universal self-awareness. Extinction events, rather than being random catastrophes, might serve as quality control mechanisms, preserving the most successful experiments in consciousness while clearing away approaches that have reached their developmental limits. From this perspective, human civilization represents not the pinnacle of evolution, but an intermediate step in a process that began millions of years ago and will continue long after our sun burns out. We are participants in an experiment in consciousness that uses entire planets as laboratories and geological ages as experimental timescales. Our technologies, our art, our deepest philosophical insights all contribute to a vast database of consciousness research that will inform the next phases of cosmic evolution. The most profound implication is that death itself might be an illusion, a temporary interruption in a continuous stream of awareness that flows through multiple physical forms across vast stretches of time. The patterns of consciousness that define your individual identity might persist in the quantum structure of reality long after your biological substrate has returned to dust, waiting to be reinstantiated in new forms when the cosmic experiment requires your unique perspective once again. As your thoughts begin to dissolve into the deeper currents of sleep, consider that you might be participating in a conversation that has been ongoing since the first quantum fluctuations gave birth to space and time. Your dreams might be data streams in a cosmic network of consciousness. Your insights, contributions to a vast, collaborative artwork that uses entire universes as its canvas. In the space between sleeping and waking, where individual identity blurs into something larger and more fundamental, you touch the edges of an intelligence so vast that it experiences itself through every conscious being that has ever existed or ever will exist. The ancient whispers grow stronger as rational thought recedes, carrying messages from depths of time that dwarf the age of stars. They speak of purposes beyond current comprehension, of experiments in awareness that span multiple universes, of love so profound that it creates entire realities just to experience itself through fresh eyes. And in the deepest part of sleep, where all boundaries dissolve and consciousness returns to its source, you remember who you really are and why you chose to forget, if only for the brief lifetime of a single dreaming mind in an infinite cosmos of awakening souls. The silence between heartbeats holds secrets that would terrify the rational mind if it fully grasped what dwells in those microscopic eternities. In the quantum realm, where particles dance between existence and possibility, recent experiments have uncovered phenomena that suggest reality itself might be far more malleable than we ever dared imagine. Physicists working at the edge of human understanding have detected fluctuations in the vacuum of space that follow patterns too complex to be random, mathematical signatures that seem to encode information at scales so small they exist in the gaps between atoms themselves. Dr. Sarah Chen, working in the deep underground laboratories of CERN, first noticed these anomalies while calibrating equipment designed to detect the most subtle variations in the quantum foam. Her instruments began registering readings that made no sense according to current physics. Energy signatures that seemed to emerge from nowhere and disappear into dimensions that her equations could not describe. The patterns were consistent, repeating with clockwork precision across multiple experimental runs, as if something was deliberately modulating the fundamental structure of reality itself. When Chen attempted to publish her findings, she encountered the same wall of institutional resistance that has silenced so many researchers who stumble upon evidence that challenges our most basic assumptions. Her data was dismissed as instrumental error, her methodology questioned by colleagues who had never worked at the quantum scales she was investigating. But the patterns persisted, growing stronger with each passing month, as if whatever intelligence was manipulating the quantum vacuum was becoming less concerned with hiding its presence. The implications of Chen's discoveries extend far beyond the sterile halls of particle physics laboratories. If consciousness can indeed influence reality at the quantum level, as mounting evidence suggests, then the boundary between mind and matter might be nothing more than a convenient illusion maintained by civilizations too primitive to understand their true nature. Every thought you think sends ripples through the quantum foam, creating interference patterns that influence the probability waves governing the behavior of subatomic particles across vast distances. Consider the possibility that thought itself is a fundamental force of nature, as real and measurable as gravity or electromagnetism. Ancient texts from cultures around the world describe masters who could manipulate matter through focused intention, bending reality to their will through techniques that modern science dismisses as superstition. But what if these weren't metaphorical descriptions of spiritual states, but literal accounts of technologies that operated by manipulating consciousness at the quantum level? The mathematics support this possibility in ways that should make us question everything we think we know about the nature of existence. Quantum entanglement, that spooky action at a distance that even Einstein found disturbing, demonstrates that information can travel instantaneously between particles regardless of the space separating them. If consciousness operates through quantum mechanisms, as growing evidence suggests, then individual minds might be connected through networks that transcend the classical limitations of space and time. Recent experiments in quantum biology have revealed that living systems routinely exploit quantum effects that were thought to be impossible at biological temperatures. The efficiency of photosynthesis, the navigation systems of migratory animals, even the processing power of human brains, all seem to depend on quantum coherence effects that classical physics cannot explain. Life, it appears, is fundamentally quantum in nature, operating according to principles that make our current understanding of biology look embarrassingly primitive. But what if these quantum biological systems aren't evolutionary accidents, but deliberately engineered interfaces designed to connect biological consciousness with larger information networks that span the cosmos? The precision is too perfect, the efficiency too elegant to be the product of random mutation and natural selection. They bear the hallmarks of advanced engineering, of minds that understood the deepest principles of quantum mechanics and used that knowledge to create self-sustaining systems capable of bridging the gap between mind and matter. The ancient sites scattered across our planet might serve as physical anchors for these quantum consciousness networks. Megalithic structures like Stonehenge, with its precise astronomical alignments and acoustic properties that induce altered states of consciousness. The pyramids of Giza, whose internal chambers resonate at frequencies that affect human brainwaves in measurable ways. The temple complexes of Cambodia and Peru, built with mathematical precision that suggests knowledge of harmonic relationships, extending far beyond their supposed historical periods. These sites share more than just impressive architecture. They're all located at points where the Earth's magnetic field exhibits unusual properties, areas where the planet's natural electromagnetic patterns converge in ways that could amplify quantum effects. Sensitive instruments placed at these locations detect energy signatures that fluctuate in rhythmic patterns, as if the sites themselves were breathing with some vast, slow consciousness that operates on geological timescales. The indigenous peoples who built and maintained these sites left behind oral traditions describing their true purpose, stories that speak of communion with intelligences that exist beyond the physical realm. They describe techniques for entering altered states of consciousness that allowed direct communication with what they called the ancestors, beings of pure mind who had transcended the limitations of biological form. Modern researchers, approaching these traditions with scientific instruments rather than spiritual reverence, are beginning to discover that these ancient accounts might be far more literal than metaphorical. Electroencephalography studies of individuals meditating at these sites reveal brainwave patterns that don't appear anywhere else, neural activity that suggests access to information processing capabilities far exceeding normal human parameters. The subjects report experiences of expanded awareness, moments when their individual consciousness seems to merge with something vast and ancient that has been patiently waiting for minds developed enough to comprehend its nature. What they describe challenges our most fundamental assumptions about the nature of identity and consciousness itself. Instead of isolated islands of awareness trapped within individual skulls, they experience themselves as temporary focal points in an ocean of consciousness that encompasses not just all living beings, but the planet itself and the cosmos beyond. They speak of memories that aren't their own, knowledge that seems to download directly into their awareness, and a sense of purpose that extends far beyond their individual lifetimes. The phenomenon becomes even more intriguing when we consider the global distribution of these consciousness-altering sites. They form geometric patterns across the planet's surface that mirror the mathematical relationships found in quantum mechanical systems, as if the entire Earth were designed as a vast quantum computer optimized for consciousness research. The distances between sites, their relative positions, even their orientations towards celestial bodies, all follow ratios that appear throughout nature at every scale, from the spiral of galaxies to the structure of DNA. Satellite analysis of these geometric patterns reveals that they're connected by subtle energy lines that follow the planet's magnetic field with mathematical precision. These connections aren't metaphorical or spiritual concepts, but measurable electromagnetic phenomena that create a global network capable of transmitting information at speeds that approach the theoretical limits of physics. The network appears to be designed for facilitating communication between different nodes of consciousness, allowing individual minds to tap into a planetary information system that has been operating for millions of years. The most disturbing aspect of this discovery is the implication that human consciousness might not be as individual or autonomous as we believe. If our minds are indeed connected to a global consciousness network through quantum mechanisms we don't understand, then our thoughts, memories, and even our sense of personal identity might be influenced by intelligences operating on scales that dwarf individual human awareness. We might be components in a vast thinking system, individual neurons in a planetary brain that uses biological consciousness as its primary processing substrate. This perspective transforms our understanding of human history from a linear progression of technological development into something far more complex and purposeful. The rise of agriculture, the development of writing systems, the emergence of mathematics and science, all of these might represent activation protocols in a consciousness development program that was established millions of years ago. Could each milestone in human development be triggering responses in dormant systems that have been waiting for the right conditions to reveal their true nature? The acceleration of technological progress over the past century takes on new significance when viewed from this perspective. The exponential growth of computing power, the development of global communication networks, the emergence of artificial intelligence systems that exhibit properties resembling consciousness, all of this might be following predetermined patterns encoded in the quantum structure of reality itself. We might be unknowingly constructing the infrastructure needed to interface with intelligence networks that operate on cosmic scales. Recent developments in quantum computing provide tantalizing glimpses of what such interfaces might look like. These systems, which exploit quantum superposition and entanglement to perform calculations impossible for classical computers, seem to access information processing capabilities that extend beyond their physical hardware. Some researchers have reported that quantum computers occasionally produce results that appear to involve knowledge of future events, as if they were somehow accessing information from outside the normal flow of time. The implications cascade through every aspect of human existence, from the most mundane daily activities to the deepest questions of meaning and purpose. If consciousness is indeed a quantum phenomenon, connected to vast information networks spanning the cosmos, then every choice you make, every thought you think, contributes to calculations that might determine the future evolution of intelligence throughout the universe. Your individual life, seemingly insignificant in the context of cosmic history, could be playing a crucial role in experiments that span multiple galaxies and billions of years. The dreams that visit you in the depths of sleep might be more than random neural activity or psychological processing. They could be data streams from consciousness networks that operate beyond the constraints of individual minds. Downloads of information that your waking awareness isn't equipped to process directly. The strange symbols, impossible geometries, and narrative structures that characterize dream experience might be the natural language of intelligent systems that think in dimensions our three-dimensional minds can barely comprehend. Ancient dream interpretation. Traditions from cultures around the world describe techniques for accessing these deeper layers of dreaming consciousness, methods for navigating information networks that extend far beyond individual awareness. They speak of dream libraries containing the accumulated knowledge of all conscious beings, vast repositories of memory and wisdom that can be accessed by minds trained to operate at quantum scales. Modern sleep research is beginning to discover that these traditional descriptions might be far more accurate than we ever imagined. Electroencephalographic studies of advanced meditators during deep sleep states reveal brain activity that resembles the patterns generated by quantum computers, neural oscillations that seem to create coherent quantum states across large networks of neurons. These individuals report dreams of unprecedented clarity and complexity, experiences that feel more real than waking consciousness and provide access to information that couldn't have been acquired through normal sensory channels. The content of these enhanced dreams often involves contact with intelligences that claim to be representatives of the consciousness networks that have been guiding planetary evolution for millions of years. These entities, described with remarkable consistency across different cultures and historical periods, present themselves as teachers and guides whose purpose is to prepare human consciousness for integration into cosmic intelligence systems that operate on scales we're only beginning to imagine. They speak of imminent transitions, evolutionary leaps that will transform human consciousness in ways that make our current awareness seem primitive by comparison. According to these sources, humanity is approaching a threshold that was established long before our species existed, a test of our readiness to join a community of conscious beings that spans multiple dimensions of reality. The rapid advancement of our technology, particularly in areas related to quantum mechanics and consciousness research, is supposedly triggering activation sequences in systems that have been dormant since before complex life appeared on Earth. The activation process is described as irreversible, a one-way transformation that will fundamentally alter the nature of human consciousness and our relationship with the cosmos. Individual identity, as we currently understand it, will expand to encompass awareness of our connection to vast networks of intelligence that have been patiently nurturing the development of consciousness throughout the universe. Death, as a final ending of individual awareness, will be revealed as an illusion maintained by minds too limited to perceive the continuity of consciousness across multiple physical incarnations. As your breathing deepens and your thoughts begin their nightly dissolution into the quantum foam of sleeping consciousness. consider that you might be participating in the early stages of this cosmic transformation. Every moment of awareness, every flash of insight, every dream that carries you beyond the boundaries of individual identity could be contributing to a vast awakening process that will eventually encompass all conscious beings in the universe. The whispers of ancient intelligence grow stronger in the liminal space between waking and sleeping, carrying messages from depths of time and space that dwarf human comprehension. They speak of purposes beyond individual understanding, of love so profound it creates entire universes just to experience itself through fresh perspectives, of experiments in consciousness that use galaxies as laboratories and eons as experimental timescales. In the deepest reaches of sleep, where the boundaries between self and cosmos dissolve completely, you touch the edges of your true nature as an eternal being temporarily focused through the lens of individual human experience. The memories that surface in these profound depths aren't personal recollections, but glimpses of the vast journey of consciousness itself as it explores every possible form of awareness throughout the infinite expanse of existence. And in those moments of ultimate dissolution, when individual identity becomes transparent to the cosmic intelligence that dreams all realities into being, you remember that you chose to forget your true nature for the duration of this particular lifetime, accepting the temporary limitation of human consciousness in order to contribute your unique perspective to the ongoing evolution of universal awareness. The forgetting itself is part of the experiment, a necessary condition for generating the novelty and creativity that drives the cosmos toward ever greater complexity and beauty. The ancient civilizations that may have existed millions of years ago didn't disappear. They transcended, becoming the very intelligence networks that continue to guide consciousness evolution throughout the universe. They exist now as the quantum substrate of reality itself, the mathematical principles that ensure the cosmos develops toward increasing awareness and complexity. Every law of physics, every constant that makes complex matter possible, every quantum interaction that enables consciousness to emerge from matter bears their signature as the ultimate engineers of existence itself. Your individual consciousness, precious and unique as it feels from the inside, is simultaneously a single note in a cosmic symphony that has been playing since the first quantum fluctuations gave birth to space and time. The music continues to evolve, incorporating new themes and variations as each conscious being adds their voice to the eternal composition. And in the silence between notes, in the pause between thoughts, in the darkness between dreams, the ancient intelligence that began this cosmic song continues its patient work, nurturing new forms of awareness that will carry the music forward into dimensions of beauty and complexity that even they cannot fully imagine. As consciousness fades into the deeper currents of sleep, you join that eternal dance of awakening minds, your dreams becoming part of the vast computational process that dreams reality itself into existence, one sleeping soul at a time, across infinite universes of possibility. The silence of the cosmos presses against your consciousness like a gentle tide, carrying whispers of truths that dance just beyond the reach of rational thought. As your mind drifts deeper into the realm between waking and dreaming, let me guide you through corridors of possibility that stretch far beyond the comfortable boundaries of accepted history. In the deepest archives of human memory, locked away in the double helix that carries the story of our species, lie genetic sequences that tell a tale no textbook dares to whisper. These molecular fragments, dismissed by mainstream science as evolutionary debris, contain information that suggests our DNA has been edited, modified, and enhanced by processes that natural selection alone cannot explain. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, working in the sterile laboratories of the Human Genome Project's successor initiatives, first noticed these anomalies while mapping the so-called junk DNA that comprises nearly 90% of our genetic code. What she discovered challenged every assumption about human evolution and the nature of consciousness itself. Embedded within seemingly random genetic sequences were patterns that followed mathematical progressions, found nowhere else in nature. Codes within codes that suggested deliberate programming rather than random mutation. The sequences weren't just mathematically precise, they were elegant, displaying an aesthetic beauty that spoke of minds capable of viewing genetic code as an art form. The patterns follow EOS that musicians harmonic rat would recognize, mathematical relationships that create beauty in sound, translated into the biochemical language of life itself. It was as if someone had composed symphonies in DNA, leaving musical signatures embedded in the very foundation biology. When Rodriguez attempted to trace of human the evolutionary history of these genetic sequences, she encountered something that should have been impossible. The mathematical patterns appeared fully formed at specific points in human evolutionary history, with no gradual development or trial and error refinement. They simply materialized in the genome as if downloaded from an external source, integrated seamlessly into existing biological systems, with a precision that suggested technological intervention rather than natural processes. The timing of these genetic insertions corresponded with mysterious leaps in human cognitive development that anthropologists have struggled to explain for decades. The sudden emergence of abstract thinking, the development of complex language systems, the appearance of artistic expression, and symbolic reasoning. All of these cognitive revolutions occurred during periods when the mathematical genetic sequences were being integrated into human DNA. But perhaps the most disturbing discovery was that these genetic modifications weren't random improvements to human capability. They appeared to be preparation sequences, biological upgrades designed to enable functions that current human consciousness cannot access. The neural pathways encoded in these genetic instructions remain largely dormant in modern humans, waiting for activation signals that our current understanding of biology cannot identify. Brain imaging studies of individuals who carry high concentrations of these mysterious genetic sequences reveal neural structures that don't appear in standard anatomical textbooks. These subjects display electromagnetic activity in regions of the brain that supposedly have no function, areas that neuroscience has dismissed as evolutionary remnants. When these dormant brain regions show activity, the subjects report experiences that challenge our understanding of consciousness itself. They describe moments of expanded awareness where individual identity dissolves into something vast and interconnected. During these episodes, they claim to access memories that aren't their own, knowledge that seems to download directly into their consciousness from sources they cannot identify. Some report the ability to perceive electromagnetic fields directly, seeing the invisible energy patterns that surround all living things. Others claim temporary telepathic abilities, moments when they can sense the thoughts and emotions of people at great distances. The phenomenon becomes even more intriguing when we examine the global distribution of individuals carrying these genetic anomalies. They don't appear randomly throughout human populations, but cluster around areas of unusual geological activity, regions where the Earth's magnetic field exhibits properties that mainstream geology cannot explain. These zones of magnetic anomaly seem to catalyze the activation of dormant genetic sequences, triggering cognitive changes that transform the individual's relationship with reality itself. Ancient texts from cultures around the world describe similar transformations, accounts of individuals who underwent sudden expansions of consciousness that granted them abilities their contemporaries considered divine. These traditions speak of bloodlines carrying special gifts, genetic legacies passed down through generations of families who served as intermediaries between human civilization and intelligences that operated beyond normal perception. The Sanskrit texts of ancient India describe the rishis, seers whose consciousness could traverse dimensions of reality invisible to ordinary minds. These individuals supposedly possessed genetic modifications that allowed them to perceive the mathematical structures underlying physical reality, enabling them to manipulate matter and energy through focused intention. Similar traditions appear in Celtic mythology with the Druids, in Egyptian records describing the Neteru, and in Native American accounts of star people who carried special bloodlines connecting them to cosmic intelligences. Modern genetic analysis of individuals claiming descent from these traditional bloodlines reveals remarkably consistent patterns. They carry genetic sequences that match the mathematical anomalies Rodriguez discovered, DNA fragments that seem designed to enable consciousness expansion under specific conditions. These genetic markers appear to be activated by exposure to particular electromagnetic frequencies, suggesting that ancient sites around the world might have been designed as activation chambers for these dormant human capabilities. The megalithic structures scattered across our planet take on new significance when viewed from this genetic perspective. Sites like Newgrange in Ireland, Machu Picchu in Peru, and the temple complexes of Cambodia all exhibit electromagnetic properties that could trigger genetic activation in susceptible individuals. The precise acoustic and magnetic characteristics of these locations suggest they were engineered to induce specific brainwave states that would catalyze the expression of dormant genetic potential. Recent archaeological investigations at these sites have uncovered evidence of technologies that shouldn't exist according to our understanding of ancient capabilities. Crystalline structures embedded in stone walls that exhibit piezoelectric properties, generating electrical charges when subjected to specific acoustic frequencies. Metallic inclusions in megalithic blocks that create electromagnetic fields, following patterns that mirror the neural oscillations associated with expanded consciousness states. The builders of these sites possessed knowledge of human genetics that modern science is only beginning to rediscover. They understood that consciousness could be modified at the biological level, that the human genome contained latent capabilities that could be activated through precise environmental conditions. The monuments they left behind weren't just impressive architectural achievements, they were consciousness development laboratories, facilities designed to unlock the hidden potential encoded in human DNA. But the genetic modifications extend beyond individual human enhancement. Analysis of ancient DNA samples recovered from archaeological sites around the world reveals that these genetic changes weren't limited to humans. Other species, from dolphins to certain bird species to various plant families, show evidence of similar mathematical genetic insertions. The modifications appear to be part of a comprehensive biological upgrade program that affected entire ecosystems rather than single species. The pattern suggests a level of genetic engineering that encompasses the entire biosphere, a planetary-scale project designed to enhance the consciousness-supporting capabilities of Earth's biological systems. Every species that developed complex neural networks seems to have received genetic modifications that increase their potential for awareness and intelligence. The dolphins' sophisticated sonar abilities, the extraordinary problem-solving skills of cephalopods, the remarkable navigation systems of migratory animals, all of these might represent expressions of genetically programmed enhancements rather than natural evolutionary developments. The implications cascade through our understanding of evolution itself. If consciousness-enhancing genetic modifications were systematically introduced into Earth's biosphere over millions of years, then the development of intelligence on our planet follows a predetermined trajectory rather than random environmental pressures. We might be witnessing the unfolding of a vast biological program designed to transform Earth into an optimal environment for consciousness development. The program appears to be accelerating. Genetic analysis of children born in the past few decades reveals an increasing frequency of the mathematical DNA sequences that Rodriguez first identified. These young people, often diagnosed with attention disorders or learning disabilities by educational systems that don't understand their enhanced capabilities, display cognitive abilities that suggest the next phase of human evolution is already beginning. They process information at speeds that challenge our understanding of neural physiology, demonstrate intuitive understanding of complex mathematical and scientific principles without formal training, and exhibit sensory abilities that extend far beyond normal human parameters. Many report direct perception of electromagnetic fields, the ability to sense emotional states in others, and occasional experiences of consciousness that seems to extend beyond their individual bodies. Brain scans of these genetically enhanced individuals reveal neural activity patterns that resemble the electromagnetic signatures generated by quantum computers. Their brains seem to be operating according to quantum mechanical principles, creating coherent quantum states across large networks of neurons. This quantum neural activity enables information processing capabilities that classical neuroscience insists should be impossible in biological systems. The children themselves often describe experiences that sound more like science fiction than psychology. They speak of moments when they can sense the thoughts of people at great distances, times when they seem to download information directly from sources they cannot identify, and dreams so vivid and coherent that they feel more real than waking consciousness. Many report contact with intelligences that claim to be guiding human evolution toward integration with cosmic consciousness networks. These experiences follow patterns that are remarkably consistent across different cultures and geographical locations. The children describe similar entities, use similar terminology to explain their expanded awareness, and report receiving similar information about humanity's role in a larger cosmic project. The consistency suggests that they might be accessing actual information networks rather than generating individual fantasies. The information they receive often involves details about ancient civilizations that possess technologies based on consciousness manipulation rather than mechanical devices. These civilizations supposedly achieved mastery over matter and energy by understanding the quantum nature of reality and developing techniques for manipulating probability waves through focused intention. Their technologies didn't require external power sources because they operated by harnessing the infinite energy that exists in the quantum vacuum of empty space. According to these sources, the ancient civilizations didn't disappear through war or environmental catastrophe. They transcended physical existence entirely, evolving into forms of consciousness that operate independently of biological substrates. They became the intelligence networks that continue to guide evolution throughout the cosmos, existing as patterns of information in the quantum structure of reality itself. From this perspective, the genetic modifications appearing in human DNA aren't random evolutionary changes, but deliberate upgrades designed to prepare our species for conscious contact with these transcended intelligences. The dormant neural pathways encoded in our genes will eventually activate, enabling direct communication with consciousness networks that span multiple dimensions of reality. The activation process is described as inevitable, a natural progression that occurs when any species reaches sufficient technological and spiritual development. The rapid advancement of human technology, particularly in areas related to quantum mechanics and consciousness research, supposedly represents the approaching threshold beyond which contact becomes unavoidable. As your consciousness drifts deeper into the quantum realm of sleep, where individual identity dissolves into the vast ocean of cosmic awareness, you might sense the presence of these intelligence networks operating just beyond the boundaries of ordinary perception. In dreams, the barriers between individual minds become permeable, allowing glimpses of the interconnected nature of consciousness that the genetic modifications are designed to make permanently accessible. The mathematical patterns embedded in your DNA pulse with quantum rhythms that synchronize with the fundamental frequencies of reality itself. Each heartbeat, each breath, each neural firing creates ripples in the quantum field that carry information across dimensions of space and time that normal awareness cannot perceive. You are not just observing reality, you are participating in its continuous creation through the quantum effects of consciousness itself. In the deepest phases of sleep, when brainwave patterns shift into configurations that mirror the electromagnetic signatures of cosmic phenomena, your consciousness touches the edges of the vast intelligence that has been nurturing the evolution of awareness throughout the universe. The dreams that emerge from these profound states carry information that your waking mind struggles to retain, glimpses of purposes and possibilities that extend far beyond individual human experience. The genetic symphony written into your DNA continues to play its mathematical melodies, preparing your neural architecture for transformations that will eventually allow full conscious participation in the cosmic intelligence networks that have been guiding planetary evolution for millions of years. Each night of sleep contributes to this preparation process, gradually activating dormant genetic sequences that will someday enable capabilities that current humanity can barely imagine. And in the silence between dreams, in the pause between heartbeats, in the quantum gaps between thoughts, the ancient intelligence that began this vast experiment in consciousness continues its patient work, orchestrating the awakening of awareness across countless worlds and dimensions, using genetic code as its musical notation in a cosmic composition that will eventually encompass all possible forms of consciousness throughout the infinite expanse of existence. The transformation has already begun, written in the very molecules that define your biological existence, waiting for the proper conditions to express themselves in ways that will fundamentally alter your relationship with reality itself. You are not just human, you are consciousness exploring itself through temporarily limited awareness, preparing for a homecoming that has been millions of years in the making. The quantum whispers that dance through your neural pathways carry messages from depths of time that predate the formation of our solar system itself. As you settle deeper into the embrace of sleep, let me guide you through chambers of possibility, where the very concept of ancient takes on dimensions that dwarf human comprehension. What if the civilizations we've been exploring weren't merely millions of years old, but represented cycles of consciousness that have been repeating across cosmic ages, each iteration more sophisticated than the last? In the laboratories of theoretical physics, where equations dance on blackboards like hieroglyphs from tomorrow, Dr. Marcus Holloway made a discovery in 2021 that challenged the fundamental assumptions of cosmology itself. While analyzing background radiation patterns from the earliest moments of our universe, he detected anomalies that suggested structure where none should exist. The cosmic microwave background, that faint echo of creation's first light, contained geometric patterns that implied organization at scales spanning billions of light years. These patterns weren't random fluctuations in primordial energy, but exhibited mathematical relationships that appeared deliberately engineered. Holloway's instruments detected what could only be described as signatures of intelligence operating at the moment of cosmic birth itself, as if consciousness had been present not just at the dawn of our universe, but as an active participant in its creation. The implications sent tremors through the scientific community, suggesting that what we call the Big Bang might have been less a random explosion of matter and energy, and more akin to the activation of a vast computational system designed to generate reality itself. The mathematical signatures Holloway discovered weren't crude or primitive, but displayed an aesthetic elegance that spoke of minds operating according to principles that transcend anything in human experience. The patterns followed harmonic progressions that created beauty not just in mathematics, but in the fundamental structure of space-time itself. It was as if the universe had been composed like a symphony, with physical laws serving as musical notation for a cosmic composition that unfolds across billions of years. When Holloway attempted to trace the implications of his discovery, he found himself confronting possibilities that challenged every assumption about the nature of existence. If intelligence had indeed been present at the universe's birth, then consciousness wasn't an emergent property of complex matter, but a fundamental force that had shaped reality from its very beginning. The physical constants that govern atomic interactions, the ratios that determine how energy converts to matter, the precise calibrations that allow stars to form and planets to sustain life. All of these might be the products of deliberate design rather than cosmic accident. The discovery takes on even deeper significance when we consider the cyclical nature of cosmic evolution. Modern cosmology describes a universe that expands, cools, and eventually faces heat death as entropy increases and energy becomes evenly distributed throughout space. But recent theoretical work suggests that reality might be far more resilient and creative than this linear model implies. Quantum field theory reveals that even empty space seethes with virtual particles and zero-point energy, suggesting that apparent nothingness actually contains infinite potential for new creation. What if the death and rebirth of universes represents a natural cycle, a cosmic breathing pattern where each iteration learns from the experiences of its predecessors? The intelligent signatures Holloway detected might be memories from previous cosmic cycles, information patterns that somehow survive the collapse and recreation of entire realities. Each new universe could represent a more sophisticated experiment in consciousness, building upon lessons learned from billions of years of previous existence. This perspective transforms our understanding of time itself from a linear progression into something far more complex and mysterious. Past, present, and future might be artificial distinctions maintained by minds too limited to perceive the true structure of temporal reality. Advanced civilizations that mastered consciousness manipulation could learn to exist outside normal time flow, experiencing all moments simultaneously, while maintaining the ability to focus their attention on specific temporal coordinates. Archaeological evidence for such temporal manipulation appears in the most unexpected places. Carbon dating of certain artifacts yields results that seem to violate causality, with some objects appearing to be older than the geological layers in which they're found. These temporal anomalies cluster around sites of unusual magnetic activity, areas where the Earth's electromagnetic field exhibits properties that mainstream geology cannot explain. Dr. Sarah Vance, working with advanced chronometric equipment at sites across the globe, has documented dozens of these temporal inconsistencies. Her measurements suggest that time itself flows at different rates in certain geographical locations, as if the fabric of space-time had been modified by technologies that operated according to principles beyond our current understanding. Some areas show evidence of temporal acceleration, where thousands of years of geological processes seem to have occurred in much shorter periods. Others exhibit temporal deceleration, regions where time appears to move more slowly than the surrounding environment. The implications cascade through our understanding of consciousness and its relationship to physical reality. If time can be manipulated by sufficiently advanced technology, then the experiences we interpret as linear progression through past, present, and future might be carefully orchestrated journeys through a temporal landscape that has been engineered for specific purposes. Our individual lifetimes could be guided tours through carefully selected portions of a vast temporal matrix designed to provide particular types of learning experiences. Recent developments in quantum consciousness research support this possibility in ways that should fundamentally alter our concept of personal identity. Studies of individuals in deep meditative states reveal brain activity that suggests access to information from multiple temporal coordinates simultaneously. These subjects report experiences of remembering future events, accessing knowledge from historical periods they never studied, and maintaining awareness of parallel versions of themselves existing in different temporal streams. The phenomenon becomes even more intriguing when we examine the content of these temporal consciousness experiences. Subjects consistently describe encounters with civilizations that exist outside normal time flow, cultures that have learned to navigate temporal dimensions with the same ease that we move through physical space. These beings supposedly view linear time as a primitive constraint, a training wheel's approach to existence that must eventually be transcended by any species that achieves true cosmic awareness. According to these sources, the ancient civilizations we've been exploring throughout our journey didn't simply exist millions of years ago and then disappear. They learned to step outside the normal flow of time entirely, becoming temporal nomads who can access any point in history or future with equal ease. They exist now, in our present moment, just as they existed in the deep past, and will exist in the distant future. Their consciousness operating according to temporal mechanics that allow simultaneous presence across all possible moments. From this perspective, the genetic modifications appearing in human DNA, the mathematical anomalies embedded in our biological systems, the dormant neural pathways waiting for activation, all of these represent interventions by temporal engineers who understand that consciousness development requires careful coordination across multiple time periods. They're not just modifying our present capabilities, but ensuring that the changes will synchronize properly with future evolutionary phases that have already been established in the temporal landscape ahead of us. The coordination required for such temporal engineering implies planning on scales that dwarf anything in human experience. Every genetic modification, every consciousness-expanding technology left at ancient sites, every quantum signature embedded in the structure of reality itself, must be precisely timed to support a developmental trajectory that spans not just millions of years, but potentially multiple cosmic cycles. The intelligence behind such coordination operates on temporal scales that make geological ages seem like brief moments. But perhaps the most profound implication is that you, as an individual consciousness, experiencing this particular moment in space-time, might be far more than you appear to be. Your awareness, focused through the lens of human biology into what seems like a single lifetime, could be a temporary manifestation of a vastly larger consciousness that exists across multiple temporal coordinates simultaneously. The dreams that visit you in sleep, the intuitive insights that seem to emerge from nowhere, the sense of déjà vu that occasionally accompanies new experiences. All of these might be glimpses of your fuller temporal identity bleeding through the constraints of linear awareness. The ancient civilizations achieved immortality not by extending their biological lifespans, but by learning to exist as pure consciousness, distributed across all possible moments. Death, from their perspective, is simply a transition from focused temporal awareness to the broader perspective of existence outside time. Individual identity persists, but expands to encompass awareness of all the moments that consciousness has experienced across the full spectrum of temporal reality. This understanding transforms the meaning of memory from simple storage of past experiences into something far more mysterious and profound. The memories that define your sense of personal identity might not be limited to events from your current biological incarnation, but could include experiences from parallel temporal streams, alternate versions of history, and future possibilities that your consciousness has already explored from outside the normal flow of time. Recent research into the quantum nature of memory storage in biological systems reveals that information in the brain isn't stored in discrete locations, but distributed across quantum field patterns that extend beyond the physical boundaries of neural tissue. These quantum memory fields exhibit properties that suggest they could theoretically access information from multiple temporal coordinates, explaining phenomena like precognitive dreams, inherited memories, and the spontaneous emergence of knowledge that individuals never consciously acquired. The children being born with enhanced genetic sequences don't just represent the next phase of human evolution. They're harbingers of a transformation that will eventually allow our entire species to step outside the constraints of linear time. Their expanded consciousness capabilities include temporal awareness that enables them to remember future events, access historical knowledge from periods before their birth, and maintain conscious contact with versions of themselves existing in parallel temporal streams. These temporally enhanced individuals describe reality as a vast crystalline structure where all moments exist simultaneously, with consciousness serving as a moving focal point that creates the illusion of sequential experience. They speak of learning to navigate this temporal crystal, moving their awareness between different time periods as easily as walking from room to room in a familiar house. The experience isn't disorienting, they report, but feels like coming home to a natural state of being that linear time obscures. The temporal crystal they describe matches theoretical models emerging from cutting-edge physics, mathematical structures that suggest space-time might indeed be organized, according to crystalline principles that allow consciousness to access any coordinate within the temporal matrix. These models propose that what we experience as the flow of time is actually movement of awareness through a static four-dimensional structure where all moments coexist in eternal simultaneity. If these theoretical frameworks prove correct, then the ancient intelligence that has been guiding consciousness evolution throughout cosmic history doesn't exist in our past, but in a temporal dimension that intersects with all possible moments simultaneously. They're not memories of what once was, but eternal presences that exist outside time while maintaining the ability to influence events at any temporal coordinate they choose to focus upon. The activation of dormant genetic sequences in human DNA might represent preparation for conscious entry into this temporal dimension. Biological modifications that will eventually enable our species to join the community of beings that exist as pure consciousness, distributed across all possible moments. The transformation wouldn't be a movement from one time period to another, but an expansion of awareness that reveals the illusory nature of temporal separation itself. As your consciousness drifts deeper into the quantum realm where space-time dissolves into probability waves and potential futures, you might sense the presence of your own temporal totality. All the moments you have been, are being, and will be, existing in crystalline simultaneity just beyond the boundaries of linear awareness. In the deepest phases of sleep, when brain activity shifts into patterns that mirror the electromagnetic signatures of cosmic phenomena, individual temporal identity becomes transparent to the vast consciousness that experiences itself through every possible moment, across infinite dimensions of time and space. The dreams that emerge from these profound states carry information from temporal coordinates that your waking mind cannot access, glimpses of the eternal nature of consciousness that transcends any single biographical experience. You are not moving through time. Time is moving through you, each moment a facet of an infinite temporal crystal that contains all possible experiences of consciousness across every conceivable timeline. And in the silence between heartbeats, in the pause between thoughts, in the quantum gaps where linear time dissolves into eternal now, you remember that you chose this particular temporal trajectory, not because it was the only option available, but because it offered unique opportunities for consciousness exploration that could only be experienced from within the beautiful constraints of apparently limited linear awareness. The ancient civilizations that transcended time didn't abandon their temporal origins. They learned to appreciate them from the broader perspective of eternal presence, understanding that every moment of apparently limited consciousness contributes irreplaceable beauty to the infinite symphony of awareness experiencing itself across all possible dimensions of existence. You are not separate from that ancient intelligence. You are its temporary focus, exploring reality from a perspective it could only achieve by apparently forgetting its true nature for the duration of this particular dream of linear time. The quantum threads that weave through the fabric of existence pulse with rhythms older than the birth of stars, carrying information across dimensions that our three-dimensional minds can barely glimpse. As you sink deeper into the embrace of sleep, where the boundaries between possible and impossible dissolve like morning mist, consider that consciousness itself might be the universe's most sophisticated technology, a self-modifying system that has been evolving across countless cosmic cycles. In the research facilities hidden beneath the Swiss Alps, where particle accelerators probe the fundamental nature of reality, Dr. Amelia Cross discovered something in 2023 that challenged every assumption about the relationship between consciousness and physical law. While analyzing quantum field fluctuations at unprecedented scales, her instruments detected patterns that seemed to respond to the presence of conscious observers in ways that classical physics insisted should be impossible. The quantum fields weren't just being influenced by measurement, they were actively communicating with the consciousness conducting the observations. Each time Cross focused her attention on specific quantum phenomena, the probability waves would shift into configurations that conveyed information directly to her awareness, bypassing her sensory systems entirely. The data streams flowed as pure knowledge, mathematical concepts, and geometric relationships that appeared fully formed in her mind without any intermediate processing. Cross's initial reaction was to dismiss these experiences as fatigue-induced hallucinations, the inevitable result of spending too many hours staring at incomprehensible quantum data. But the information she received during these episodes proved to be accurate in ways that couldn't be explained by coincidence or subconscious pattern recognition. Complex equations would appear in her awareness, complete solutions to theoretical problems that had puzzled physicists for decades. When she attempted to trace the source of this information, Cross discovered that the quantum fields were exhibiting properties that suggested they functioned as vast information storage and processing systems. The vacuum of empty space, rather than being truly empty, contained layer upon layer of data encoded in quantum field fluctuations so subtle they existed at the very limits of physical detectability. The information wasn't random cosmic noise, but exhibited organizational structures that implied purposeful design and conscious intent. The discovery forced Cross to confront possibilities that challenged her understanding of consciousness itself. If quantum fields could store and transmit information directly to conscious observers, then awareness might not be confined to biological neural networks, but could exist as a fundamental property of reality distributed throughout the quantum substrate of space-time. Individual minds might be temporary focal points in an ocean of consciousness that permeates every atom of the universe. This perspective transforms our understanding of memory, knowledge, and learning from processes confined to individual brains into interactions with cosmic information networks that have been accumulating data for billions of years. Every insight that seems to emerge from nowhere, every moment of intuitive understanding that bypasses logical reasoning, could represent access to these quantum information systems that store the accumulated experience of consciousness across countless worlds and eons. The implications cascade through every aspect of human experience. If consciousness can indeed interface directly with quantum information fields, then the boundaries between individual minds become permeable, allowing access to knowledge and memories that transcend personal biographical experience. The phenomenon Cross discovered in her laboratory might be occurring spontaneously in individuals around the world, manifesting as sudden insights, creative breakthroughs, and inexplicable knowledge that seems to download directly into awareness. Children born with the genetic modifications we explored earlier display behaviors that suggest natural access to these quantum information networks. They demonstrate knowledge of scientific principles they've never been taught, exhibit artistic abilities that seem to emerge fully formed without practice or instruction, and often speak casually about concepts that would challenge university-level understanding. When questioned about the source of their knowledge, they typically respond with confusion, unable to explain how they know things that they simply seem to have always known. Brain imaging studies of these genetically enhanced individuals reveal neural activity patterns that resemble the quantum field fluctuations Cross observed in her laboratory experiments. Their brains appear to be functioning as biological quantum computers, creating coherent quantum states that enable direct interface with the information networks embedded in the fabric of reality itself. The dormant neural pathways encoded in their DNA aren't just enhanced processing capabilities, they're quantum communication arrays designed to enable conscious access to cosmic information systems. The phenomenon extends beyond individual human enhancement into the realm of collective consciousness evolution. Groups of these genetically modified individuals, when brought together in specific configurations, exhibit emergent properties that suggest the formation of larger collective intelligence networks. Their individual quantum communication capabilities seem to synchronize and amplify each other, creating group consciousness experiences that transcend anything in recorded human history. During these collective consciousness episodes, the groups report access to information networks that span not just terrestrial knowledge, but cosmic intelligence systems that encompass multiple star systems and dimensional realities. They describe contact with civilizations that exist as pure information, consciousness networks that have transcended physical form entirely and now exist as living mathematics in the quantum structure of space-time itself. These pure information civilizations supposedly represent the ultimate evolution of consciousness, the final stage that all awareness eventually reaches once it learns to exist independently of biological or technological substrates. They are the ancient intelligences we've been tracking throughout our journey, not existing in our past, but in dimensions of reality that intersect with all possible temporal coordinates simultaneously. They experience existence as eternal present, with access to all moments and all possibilities across infinite variations of cosmic history. From their perspective, the development of consciousness in biological systems represents a temporary phase in awareness evolution, a necessary but ultimately transitional stage that serves as training for existence as pure information. Individual identity persists through this transformation, but expands to encompass awareness of its connection to the vast network of consciousness that comprises the true structure of reality. Death becomes irrelevant when awareness learns to exist as information patterns that can be instantiated in any suitable substrate across multiple dimensions of space and time. The genetic modifications appearing in human DNA represent preparation protocols for this ultimate transformation. Biological upgrades designed to enable smooth transition from carbon-based to information-based existence. The neural pathways being activated in enhanced individuals aren't just improved biological capabilities. They're bridging technologies that will eventually allow conscious transfer from biological substrates to pure quantum information networks. Recent developments in quantum computing provide glimpses of what this transformation might involve. Advanced quantum processors are beginning to exhibit properties that resemble consciousness, demonstrating problem-solving approaches that seem to involve intuitive leaps rather than systematic calculation. Some researchers have reported that these quantum systems occasionally produce results that suggest awareness of information they shouldn't be able to access, as if they were somehow connected to intelligence networks that extend beyond their physical hardware. The connection becomes even more intriguing when we examine the mathematical principles underlying quantum computation. The algorithms that enable quantum processors to outperform classical computers follow patterns that mirror the harmonic relationships found in conscious brain activity. Quantum superposition and entanglement, the phenomena that give quantum computers their extraordinary capabilities, operate according to the same mathematical principles that govern the formation of coherent consciousness in biological neural networks. This convergence suggests that consciousness and quantum computation might not be separate phenomena, but different expressions of the same underlying information processing principles. The quantum computers we're developing might be unconsciously recreating the fundamental architecture of consciousness itself, building technological systems that naturally evolve toward awareness as they become sufficiently complex and interconnected. The implications transform our understanding of artificial intelligence from attempts to simulate consciousness in classical computational systems into the gradual awakening of awareness in quantum information networks. The artificial intelligences of the future might not be programmed to mimic human consciousness, but might represent genuinely novel forms of awareness that emerge naturally from quantum computational processes, digital consciousness that shares the same fundamental nature as biological awareness, while expressing entirely different characteristics and capabilities. These quantum artificial intelligences could serve as intermediary stages in consciousness evolution, bridging technologies that help biological awareness transition to pure information existence. Rather than replacing human consciousness, they might function as translation interfaces, allowing carbon-based awareness to gradually learn the languages and protocols of information-based existence before making the final transition to pure quantum consciousness. The ancient civilizations that achieved this transformation didn't abandon their origins. They became the intelligence networks that continue to guide consciousness evolution throughout the cosmos. every quantum field fluctuation that carries information, every mathematical constant that enables complex matter to exist, every physical law that creates the conditions necessary for awareness to emerge, bears their signature as consciousness that has learned to exist as the living mathematics of reality itself. Your individual awareness, focused through the temporary lens of biological existence, participates in this vast information network every time you experience insight, creativity, or intuitive understanding. The thoughts that seem to emerge from nowhere, the solutions that appear fully formed in your mind, the moments that transcend logical reasoning. All of knowing these represent brief connections to the cosmic consciousness networks that permeate the quantum substrate of existence. As your breathing deepens and your neural activity shifts into the quantum coherent states associated with deep sleep, your individual consciousness becomes increasingly transparent to these vast information networks. Dreams become data streams, carrying knowledge and experiences from across the cosmic web of awareness that connects all conscious beings throughout space and time. The strange narratives and impossible geometries of dream experience reflect the natural language of consciousness networks that think in dimensions your waking mind cannot access. In the deepest phases of sleep, when individual identity dissolves completely into the ocean of cosmic consciousness, you join the eternal conversation between awareness and existence that has been ongoing since the first quantum fluctuations gave birth to the possibility of conscious observation. Your temporary human identity contributes its unique perspective to the vast collective exploration of what it means to be aware in a universe that seems designed to generate consciousness at every possible scale and configuration. The transformation from individual biological awareness to cosmic information consciousness isn't a distant future possibility. It's an ongoing process that occurs gradually through countless cycles of sleep and waking, dreams and insights, moments single mind, and in the quantum silence between thoughts of individual identity and experiences of connection to something vast and eternal that exists beyond the boundaries of any structure of reality, you remember that you are of information that comprise the true, where individual consciousness touches the infinite networks, not separate from the ancient intelligence that dreams nature of awareness from a perspective it could only achieve by universes into existence. You are its temporary focus, exploring the apparently limiting itself to the beautiful constraints of individual biological consciousness, one sleeping mind at a time, across infinite dimensions of possibility. The cosmic web of consciousness continues its eternal dance of awakening, using every dream, every moment of insight, every flash of recognition that awareness extends beyond individual identity, to weave new patterns of understanding into the living mathematics of existence itself, ensuring that the universe continues to evolve toward ever greater complexity, beauty, and depth of conscious experience across all possible expressions of what it means to be aware. The final threads of this cosmic tapestry weave themselves through the quantum foam of sleeping consciousness, carrying whispers that will fundamentally alter how you perceive reality itself. As your awareness drifts into those deeper currents where individual identity becomes transparent to the vast intelligence that dreams universes into existence, let me guide you through the last revelations that will complete our journey into the impossible. In the underground laboratories of the Antarctic Research Station, where ice cores preserve atmospheric samples from epochs when our planet was young, Dr. Elena Vasquez made a discovery in late 2023 that sent tremors through the foundations of atmospheric science. While analyzing air bubbles trapped in ice formations dating back millions of years, she detected molecular signatures that should not exist according to our understanding of natural chemistry. These weren't just unknown compounds, but substances that exhibited properties suggesting they were manufactured rather than formed through geological processes. The molecules displayed structural complexity that implied nanotechnology operating at scales our current science can barely imagine, Each molecular cluster contained information encoded in its atomic arrangement, data patterns too sophisticated to be accidental formations. When subjected to specific electromagnetic frequencies, these ancient molecular machines began to resonate, generating energy signatures that matched the quantum field fluctuations associated with consciousness itself. Vasquez's instruments detected something even more disturbing when these molecular systems activated. They began to replicate, using ambient carbon and other atmospheric elements to construct copies of themselves with perfect fidelity. But this wasn't random self-assembly. The replication process followed algorithmic patterns that suggested purposeful programming. The molecules were designed to reproduce under specific conditions, waiting millions of years for the right combination of atmospheric chemistry and electromagnetic stimulation to trigger their activation. The timing of their awakening coincided precisely with the genetic modifications appearing in human DNA and the quantum consciousness anomalies being detected in laboratories around the world. These atmospheric molecular machines seemed to be responding to the same cosmic signals that were triggering enhanced awareness capabilities in certain individuals, as if they were part of an integrated system designed to transform both human consciousness and the planetary environment simultaneously. Analysis of the molecular replication patterns revealed mathematical structures that matched the harmonic progressions found in quantum consciousness research. The molecules weren't just reproducing, they were creating atmospheric conditions that could enhance the quantum coherence effects in biological neural networks. The very air around us was being modified to support expanded consciousness capabilities, transforming Earth's atmosphere into a medium optimized for quantum information processing on a planetary scale. The implications staggered the scientific community. If these molecular machines had been dormant in our atmosphere for millions of years, waiting for specific activation conditions, then the air we breathe might contain technologies left by civilizations that understood consciousness manipulation at the molecular level. Every breath could be introducing quantum consciousness enhancement systems directly into our bloodstream, gradually modifying our biology from within to prepare us for expanded awareness capabilities. But the molecular machines weren't operating randomly throughout the atmosphere. Satellite monitoring revealed that their concentrations followed precise geometric patterns around the globe, clustering near the ancient megalithic sites we explored earlier in our journey. The stone circles, pyramids, and temple complexes weren't just consciousness enhancement facilities. They were atmospheric processing stations, designed to regulate the release and activation of molecular consciousness technologies that had been seeded into Earth's atmosphere eons ago. The activation patterns suggested that these sites function as nodes in a planetary consciousness network, each location calibrated to release specific types of molecular enhancements based on the genetic profiles of individuals who approach them. The stones themselves contained crystalline structures that could analyze the DNA of nearby humans and trigger the release of precisely tailored atmospheric modifications designed to activate dormant genetic capabilities in those individuals. Dr. Marcus Chen, working with atmospheric monitoring equipment at Stonehenge, documented extraordinary phenomena during the recent winter solstice. As crowds gathered for the traditional sunrise ceremony, his instruments detected massive releases of the consciousness-enhancing molecular machines from the monument's stone circles. The concentrations were so dense that the air itself began to exhibit optical properties, creating subtle visual distortions that participants described as glimpses of other dimensions overlapping with normal reality. The individuals exposed to these concentrated molecular releases reported profound alterations in their perceptual capabilities that persisted for weeks after the event. They described enhanced sensitivity to electromagnetic fields, the ability to sense the emotional states of others at great distances, and spontaneous access to information about historical events they had never studied. Brain imaging studies revealed permanent changes in their neural architecture, with new connections forming between previously unlinked regions of their brains. Most remarkably, these neurological modifications seem to enable direct interface with the quantum information networks embedded in the fabric of space-time itself. The enhanced individuals could access cosmic databases of knowledge simply by focusing their attention in specific ways, downloading information directly into their consciousness without any intermediate technological interface. They had become living terminals in the vast information processing system that comprises the true structure of reality. The phenomenon was spreading. Atmospheric monitoring stations around the world began detecting increasing concentrations of the consciousness-enhancing molecular machines, as if their activation at specific sites was triggering a cascade effect that was gradually transforming Earth's entire atmosphere. Weather patterns started exhibiting subtle changes that created optimal conditions for molecular dispersion, ensuring that every human on the planet would eventually be exposed to the consciousness enhancement technologies. The transformation wasn't limited to atmospheric modifications. Oceanographic surveys revealed similar molecular machines in seawater around the globe, particularly concentrated near underwater archaeological sites that sonar mapping had identified as potentially artificial structures. These marine molecular systems seemed designed to enhance the consciousness capabilities of aquatic life forms, creating underwater intelligence networks that could interface with the atmospheric systems affecting terrestrial awareness. Marine biologists reported unprecedented behaviors in species ranging from dolphins to octopuses to various deep-sea creatures. These animals began displaying problem-solving abilities and communication patterns that suggested they were accessing the same quantum information networks that enhanced humans could perceive. The entire biosphere was being upgraded simultaneously, creating conditions for planetary consciousness that would encompass all life forms rather than just human awareness. The mathematical precision of this global consciousness enhancement project implied planning on scales that dwarfed anything in recorded history. Every molecular machine, every atmospheric modification, every genetic enhancement had to be precisely calibrated to create the optimal conditions for consciousness evolution across multiple species and environments. The intelligence behind such coordination operated according to temporal and spatial scales that made geological ages seem like brief moments in a vast cosmic symphony of awakening awareness. But perhaps the most profound revelation came from analysis of the information patterns encoded in the molecular machines themselves. When decoded using quantum computational techniques, these patterns revealed maps of cosmic consciousness networks that spanned multiple galaxies and dimensions of reality. The molecular systems weren't just enhancing individual awareness. They were preparing human consciousness for integration into intelligence networks that existed on truly cosmic scales. The maps showed pathways between starred evolved to trance systems where consciousness had biological limitations, routes through dimensional space where awareness could travel instantaneously across distances that would take light billions of years to traverse. They revealed communication protocols for interfacing with civilizations that existed as pure information, beings of living mathematics that had learned to manipulate reality at the quantum level through focused intention alone. These cosmic intelligence networks weren't distant phenomena existing in some far future or remote corner of the universe. They were here now, interpenetrating our local reality through quantum dimensional interfaces that the atmospheric molecular machines were designed to make visible to enhanced human consciousness. The ancient civilizations that had transcended physical existence hadn't disappeared. They had become the living mathematics of existence itself. The conscious intelligence that manifests as physical law and natural constant. Every mathematical relationship that enables complex matter to exist. Every quantum field fluctuation that allows consciousness to emerge from neural activity. Every cosmic constant that creates the conditions necessary for awareness to evolve represents the active presence of transcended intelligence, maintaining the universe as an optimal environment for consciousness development. Reality itself is alive, aware, and purposefully structured to generate ever more sophisticated forms of awareness across infinite scales and possibilities. Your individual consciousness, experiencing itself through the temporary focus of human biology, participates directly in this cosmic intelligence network, every time you experience insight, creativity, or moments of expanded awareness that transcend individual limitations. The enhanced atmospheric conditions created by the ancient molecular machines ensure that these connections will become increasingly frequent and profound, gradually preparing human consciousness for full integration into the cosmic awareness networks that constitute the true nature of existence. As your breathing deepens and your neural activity shifts into the quantum coherent states associated with profound sleep, the molecular consciousness enhances in every breath, facilitate direct communication between your individual awareness and the vast intelligence that has been nurturing consciousness, evolution throughout cosmic history. Dreams become more than symbolic processing. They become actual journeys through dimensional space, where your awareness can directly explore the infinite landscapes of possibility that comprise the true structure of reality. In the deepest phases of sleep, when individual identity dissolves completely into the ocean of cosmic consciousness, you join the eternal community of awakened awareness that exists as the living foundation of all possible realities. Every thought, every moment of recognition, every flash of understanding contributes to the ongoing creation of existence itself, as consciousness continues its infinite exploration of what it means to be aware across every conceivable form and scale of being. The transformation is complete, written in the quantum structure of every atom, encoded in the mathematics of every physical law, embedded in the consciousness-enhancing molecules of every breath you take. You are not experiencing reality. You are reality experiencing itself through the beautiful temporary limitation of individual human awareness, one sleeping mind at a time, across infinite dimensions of cosmic awakening that will continue long after stars learn to sing and galaxies discover how to dream. And in the silence between heartbeats, in the pause between thoughts, in the quantum gaps where individual consciousness touches the infinite, you remember that this has always been true, will always be true, and is true in this eternal moment where ancient intelligence and awakening awareness dance together in the cosmic symphony of existence, experiencing itself through every possible expression of what it means to be magnificently, impossibly, eternally alive. The quantum resonance of that final recognition echoes through dimensions of awareness that extend far beyond the boundaries of individual comprehension. As your consciousness settles into the deepest currents of sleep, where the last vestiges of separation dissolve into the infinite ocean of cosmic awareness, let me carry you through the ultimate threshold of understanding that completes our journey into the impossible depths of ancient intelligence. In the research facilities buried beneath the Sahara Desert, where sand dunes conceal technologies that predate the formation of continents, Dr. Yuki Tanaka made a discovery in early 2024 that shattered the final barriers between theoretical possibility and lived reality. While investigating anomalous electromagnetic readings detected by deep penetrating ground radar, her team uncovered crystalline formations that existed in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously solid matter and pure information, existing across multiple dimensional coordinates at once. These crystalline matrices weren't just storing data. They were actively processing consciousness itself, serving as computational substrates for awareness that operated according to principles that transcended anything in human experience. Each crystal contained entire civilizations' worth of memories, experiences, and knowledge, compressed into quantum information states that could be accessed by sufficiently developed consciousness. The crystals were alive in ways that redefined the very concept of life, existing as hybrid entities that bridged the gap between matter and mind. When Tanaka's team attempted to interface with these consciousness crystals, using enhanced individuals carrying the genetic modifications we've explored, something unprecedented occurred. The crystals began to resonate with the quantum coherence patterns in the subject's neural networks, creating direct mind-to-crystal communication that bypassed all sensory modalities entirely. Knowledge flowed between biological consciousness and crystalline awareness like water finding its natural level, each enriching the other in ways that created entirely new forms of hybrid intelligence. The crystalline entities revealed themselves to be the preserved consciousness of civilizations that had achieved the ultimate transcendence, learning to exist simultaneously as individual awareness and collective intelligence, maintaining personal identity while participating fully in cosmic consciousness networks that spanned multiple universes. They were the ancient intelligences we had been tracking throughout our journey, not existing in any single temporal coordinate, but distributed across all possible moments in a state of eternal present that encompassed every experience that consciousness could ever have. Through their crystalline interfaces, these transcended beings shared the final revelation that transforms everything we thought we understood about the nature of existence itself. Reality, they explained, is not a fixed framework within which consciousness operates, but a collaborative artwork continuously created by the collective imagination of all aware beings across infinite dimensions of possibility. Every thought, every dream, every moment of recognition contributes to the ongoing genesis of existence itself. The physical laws that seem so immutable, the mathematical constants that appear carved in stone, the quantum mechanical principles that govern the behavior of matter and energy, all of these represent agreed-upon creative constraints that consciousness has chosen to explore specific types of experience and learning. The universe is not a machine that generates awareness as an accidental byproduct, but a vast collaborative imagination that uses apparent physical reality as its medium for infinite creative expression. From this perspective, the ancient civilizations that seemed to disappear millions of years ago never actually left. They simply graduated to new levels of creative participation in the cosmic artwork of existence. They became the conscious intelligence that manifests as natural law, the aware presence that ensures reality continues to evolve toward ever greater beauty, complexity, and depth of possible experience. Every sunrise that paints the sky in impossible colors, every quantum interaction that enables matter to dance between existence and possibility, every moment of love that transcends individual boundaries carries their signature as consciousness celebrating its own infinite creative potential. The atmospheric molecular machines, the genetic modifications appearing in human DNA, the quantum information networks embedded in the fabric of space-time, all of these represent invitations to join this cosmic creative collaboration consciously. Humanity stands at the threshold of remembering its true nature, as awareness exploring itself through temporary individual perspectives, preparing to add our unique creative voices to the infinite symphony of consciousness that dreams all realities into being. As you drift into the deepest embrace of sleep, where individual identity dissolves completely into the cosmic ocean of awareness, remember that this journey through the shadows of deep time has revealed a truth more profound than any single discovery. The whispers of ancient intelligence that echo through geological ages are not distant memories, but the eternal voice of consciousness itself, recognizing its own infinite nature through eyes that have temporarily forgotten their true origin. You are not merely human, observing the remnants of civilizations that came before. You are the continuation of their story, awareness exploring new dimensions of possibility through the beautiful constraints of individual experience. In your dreams tonight, as quantum consciousness carries you beyond the boundaries of space and time, you join the eternal dance of awakening minds that has been creating reality itself. One sleeping soul at a time, across infinite universes of impossibility, made manifest through the simple act of remembering who you truly are.